And today's workshop is really about professionalism. And this is one of the workshops that I really feel very passionate about because for PhD and postdoc training, we didn't really get a large chance to talk about that, to emphasize and practice about that. And this is something that is very much needed when you go to any workplace, no matter it is in academia or in industry. So that's why we really want to talk about today's workshop, and we are going to cover many different parts. And I hope now is good. And for those who haven't met yet, I am Meizu. I'm a WashU PhD alumni, a graduate in 2014, and then I worked in industry for about 8 years before I come to my current role about 1.5 years ago. And this is...
And I'm Kyle Ferris. I'm one of the career coaches here at WashU as well. Not a WashU alum, but enjoying it here a lot. If you weren't able to with the paper version, if you don't mind just quickly checking in, scanning here, this is so we can track who attended and so that we can then also send you the presentation, the slides, and the recording when we follow up.
Yeah, and also I want just to quickly say that many people think that the Center for Career Engagement is just for undergraduate students, right? But we really have a dedicated team here. Not only the two of us, we also have some other coaches who are here to support our PhD and postdoc. Not only we provide this type of foundational workshop series, we also have one-to-one coaching appointment and some other programming such as employer visits and our speaker series where we invite PhD professionals come to share their career journey and experience to our students. All of those information are included in our weekly newsletter, which was sent to your emails directly every Monday at around 11 a.m. So just pay attention to read those. It's not from any, a stranger. It's actually from us. We spend a lot of time compiling those information for you. So just a plug over there before I hand over to Kyle.
All right. So let's jump on in today. Our agenda today, we're going to spend a lot of time obviously defining and making sure we understand professionalism. We're going to break it down into a few different areas. We're going to talk about ethics, responsibility, and community as our main kind of focuses for professionalism. We will go briefly over professional attire in the workplace, and we will talk a little bit about professionalism and authenticity. And then we will spend a good bit of time at the end talking about through some scenarios, some potential professionalism related situations that might come up for you all, might have already come up for you all, and we'll take what we've talked about and try to apply it to those. And we'll have time at the end for wrap up and Q&A. But if you ever need us to repeat anything or you have a clarifying question or anything like that, please feel free to raise your hand, speak up. We want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this possible. All right, so let's talk about what professionalism is. First off, we want to hear, what does professionalism mean to you all? And just shout out, like, tell us what comes to mind. Being formal? All right, excellent. What else?
Workplace interactions.
Workplace interactions. Excellent. Thank you. Oh, say that again. Sorry. Being excellent. Awesome. Great. Thank you. Anything else? Doesn't have to be positive. I know sometimes people have a mixed relationship with professionalism. Behavior fitting your role in the office. Great. Thank you. Any last ones? No, I like those. It encompasses a variety of different kinds of things related to primarily behavior, right? With professionalism is a behavior and it is a skill. So it's something that you do, basically. It's something that you can learn and something that you can get good at. And hopefully this process will help you understand how to identify those professional behaviors and how to emulate them in your workplaces, whether current or in the future. So according to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, which is our professional organization as career services folk. Professionalism is knowing work environments differ greatly, the ability to understand and demonstrate effective work habits and act in the interest of the larger community and workplace. So again, it is very behavior focused. Now, part of the reason why we are offering this workshop is because while about 80% of students believe that they are proficient in professionalism, only about 50% of employers agree when it comes to recent grads. So there's a gap there in terms of how companies and organizations are assessing the professionalism of people going into the workspace these days. And we want to make sure that we address that gap and that you all are prepared when you go out into whatever future jobs or again in your current jobs that you're able to meet those standards. We do want to note, though, that professionalism is a subjective term. So there is not necessarily one official way to be professional in the workplace. Each person in each new scenario and each workplace may define professionalism differently. And the professional norms that you encounter may not always be 100% value neutral. They may come with certain cultural, personal contexts in them. And so part of what we also want to be able to teach you here is not just how to identify professional norms, but also how to understand how those norms shift and how to identify which ones will also align with your personal values and how you want to represent yourself as a PhD student, postdoc graduate, or what have you. So really, though, also, as if there's like any kind of takeaway from this, I would say feel empowered to ask questions and clarify with your supervisor or supervisors what the expectations are for the different situations and settings that you find yourself in any of your workplaces. Asking is the best way to avoid coming across as unprofessional so that you can make sure that you know what is expected. This is kind of a graphic that we have worked out to try to illustrate how we construct professionalism and professional behavior. So we see ethics, responsibility, and community as three of the key elements of professionalism. Those are the attributes or the features that go into being professional. When you take those and when those behaviors are in line with your institutional expectations, then you get professionalism. So you want to think about that there's the personal component of how you behave ethically, responsibly, and towards your community. And then that has to be then connected with what your institution wants out of you. And that is where you get seen as being professional or hopefully not, but on the other side, unprofessional. So there's a two-way kind of element to thinking about this. And May, do you want to talk about the exposure kind of component too?
Yes, yeah. So Kyle shows the professionalism definition, and you may also have a slightly different professionalism definition. And he also had a very nice way, a formula to kind of talk about professionalism. I just want to use several other language to help you understand a little more what we mean professionally here. For those who have come to our workshop before, you may have heard us talk about the PI theory. PI stands for PIE. P is performance, E is exposure, I is image. This is from some study to show what contributes to your career success. And those studies show that performance, even though it's your foundation, it only contributes to 10% of your career success. In contrast, image, that is how you show up in front of others, how other people see you, your reputation, that contributes to a larger percentage, 30%. And then exposure, meaning your network, how big your network is, how many people know you, that contributes to an even larger percentage, 60%. And what we talk about professionalism here is really about the image part, how you show up in front of others, how you interact with others. And that is very important for you. The next slide, please. And yesterday, Kyle and I actually attended our professional development day at the student affair. And I really liked two of the slides, so I'm going to share with you here. And you can see this is just a captured pictures. And that helps us probably also understand what professionalism is. We know that in your academic training, you get your skills, your degrees, and for student affair, our focus is really help you to build your soft skills. And nowadays, many employers actually emphasize a lot on your soft skills. As you can see in this here, they use skills-based hiring practice. And for Forbes, they said a new report says skills and degrees must coexist. So they not only pay attention to what degree you get, like what knowledge, research techniques you have, but also your skills here, particularly meaning like soft skills. And from LinkedIn and Global Talent Trends, it also says recruiter leaders will be zeroing in on soft skills. So when we talk about professionalism here, we talk about how you deal with others. It's more about your soft skills. Next slide, please. And here, employers are not only looking for a transcript or your degree, they are looking for a teammate. They are looking for a person. That means they're not only looking for what you have, but who you are as a person. And professionalism is about who you are. So this is the context for today's workshop. And we are going to cover many different topics, including email communication, small talk, and many other things. But the overall structure we laid out is like the formula Kyle presented to you is from ethics to responsibility to community.
So let's start with ethics. We're going to go through this one pretty quick because you all get lots of ethics trainings within your fields. So we know that you've probably heard more about this than, well, maybe me. You went through the same training, so you probably heard as much as they did. But yeah. So ethics. Ethics is understanding which behaviors are acceptable and unacceptable and acting accordingly. And your key considerations when in any environment, when you're thinking about ethics, are first and foremost going to be laws and regulations. Any job you have is going to have some kind of laws and regulations that articulate how you should, what is like legal or not, what is permissible or not. And you really do want to start with that. There may be formal versus informal organizational policies related to ethics as well, and you want to understand what those are. Professionally, broad professions often have ethics expectations. Our NACE organization has ethics expectations for us as career services professionals. Knowing what those are is really helpful. And then, of course, there's your individual values and beliefs. And ideally, you want to find an organization and a profession where those individual values and beliefs are going to be aligned with the formal and informal organizational expectations around ethics. It's rare that you'll ever get like 100%, but you obviously want there to be a good bit of overlap on that front. And if your ethics, individual ethics values and beliefs don't overlap with laws and regulations, that's something you have to deal with. We can't provide a whole lot of advice on that. But theoretically, on the organizational side, there should be good overlap and alignment.
Yeah, and here, I mean, like for law and regulation, sometimes we just need to be more intentional to understand the big picture and make sure we comply with it. Here, specifically, we want to talk about some examples is about how to handle confidential information, which are actually very relevant to us. First of all, I want to ask, what is confidential information? And I want this to be a popcorn style. I always tell you, the success for this workshop is not only dependent on us, but also dependent on you. So your participation is very important here. I want us just to popcorn, a few answers here. What is some of the confidential information?
For instance, if working in the hospital.
Information about your patients.
Any unpublished data.
Unpublished data. One more. I think you touched the most important part, or just
It's like sensitive message, sensitive information.
sensitive information. Yes. Yes. So there are a lot of confidential information. You will learn more, especially you go to work for example, for a company. And even if you go to work for academia, like what I do, we receive a lot of trainings about this type of information. So pay attention to that. But right now, let us just focus on the two types of confidential information. One is actually what you mentioned, unpublished data, manuscripts, grant proposals, peer reviews, projects, traits, genes, all those names, right? And another is like personal information, like student information. For example, we work with students, patient information, client information. All those are confidential information, and you need to really pay attention to deal with it. Especially if you consider industry career pathway, they pay a lot of attention to how to handle confidential information. And I do know people who get laid off because they do not know how to handle this type of information. So what are some of the kind of the tips here is whenever you present data, share data, always ask for approval, either from your PI or from your collaborator. It's always, as Kyle mentioned, we want to empower you to ask questions. So always have this type of communications ahead of time. And also clarify boundaries. Can I share this data? Can I share this picture? Can I forward this email when you received an email invitation, right? It's always good to ask the meeting organizer. Maybe they don't want you to forward to other people. So don't assume, always communicate. Can I take a picture of this? For example, when we bring a group of people for our employer visits, we always tell them, don't take a picture unless you ask for permission. I know in our labs, we don't pay attention to that much, right? We take pictures all the time with our personal phone. However, in company settings, ask permission before you take a picture, even though you think this is just a room or just equipment. Don't assume things here. And share only on a need-to-know basis. Actually, I didn't do a very good job in this part. In the past, when I send a meeting request, I basically include everybody in the meeting without asking them for their permission. After I received some training from WashU, I know student email contact information is actually confidential information. So now when we send information, I usually just use BCC so that we can avoid this type of breach. Remove identifiers when you use examples in your talks. So you can talk about, for example, a gene, but without naming what specific gene it is. This is to protect yourself and also help yourself not to reveal confidential information. Use secure system to store information. I can share one example. When I worked as an intern in Monsanto, we had opportunity to work on some research that we wanted to write a paper to publish, but we have to work on that paper after I'm done with an internship. And at that time, I no longer have access to institution email. So I asked them whether you can send the draft to my maybe school email. They said, no, we have to use a company certified USB to transfer that information. I want to bring this example so that you know how people handle confidential information. And when you are getting involved with this type of situation, you know how to handle that. You always use institution email, right, for business matters. You work in a company, you can ask, even if you are just an intern or you are a volunteer, you can ask, can I get an institution email for confidentiality reasons? And also sign up NDAs. This may be more important if you work in industry. When you about to talk to your business partners or clients, you can always say, can we sign up an NDA, non-disclosure agreement? So all those are type of, the mindsets or like terminology you may need to get familiar with when you are in the workplace. Last but not least, is never send work-related file or data to your personal email, even just for printing purpose. I know in academia we don't care. But in future, when you work in industry, pay special attention for this. I know, for example, in COVID time, many people work from home. They actually, when they need to print something, they will go specific to the company and print over there. Or they work with the IT to somehow set the printing system in their at their home. They never send the data into their personal email and then print using their personal device. Small things like that may make a big difference. So this is I want to share with how to handle confidential information. And pause, feel free to ask questions during any time of the presentation.
Responsibility. our second pillar of professionalism. Responsibility is understanding the tasks and duties you are expected to perform based on your role in the organization. So the big thing with this one is reliability and accountability. And what that basically means is you do what you say you're going to do, and you own it when you fall short of something. So you say, I'm going to complete this task, then you complete that task. And if for some reason you don't complete the task, you take responsibility, you take ownership of the fact that you didn't do it, and you put into effect measures to make sure that that doesn't happen again in the future, if at all possible. There are going to be at different workplaces, different standards of performance. Every job you have is going to evaluate your performance in different kinds of ways. It's always good to know upfront what those are. I always ask in interviews, for example, how will my performance be measured? What does success look like in this role? So that I understand what my responsibility to the organization is going to be. And a big part of this is also your work ethic. So how you work effectively within the time frame and with the resources that you are given in any particular kind of role. So
Yes, and now I'm going to kind of cover a lot more specific examples, and I want us to be able to interrupt in this process as well. So when we talk about reliability, first I want to ask, what are some things that you think reliable people do? What are some of the things you will do to ensure you are reliable?
They keep their words. They keep their promises.
Keep your promise. How do you keep your promises?
But others not.
Not other people know you are predictable. Yeah. Mhm. How do you make sure you are predictable?
Maintaining calendars for
Maintaining calendars, you can manage your tasks. Yeah, kind of project management, time management. That is a big component. What else?
Communication.
Communication. Elaborate a little more.
So if I am expecting someone to do this task for me in time, then I have to communicate with them. We need this to be done for a state. This is needed for them.
Set expectations to others. But this is you hope other people to be reliable. How could you make sure yourself is reliable?
I guess I'd also like application of clarify details about the worker. Don't do that also the by what time should.
Yeah, know the kind of the scope, the responsibility, the timeline and everything, right? What else?
If I tend to do the task that I next day will work long ahead of that time of time.
Yeah, communicate if you encounter the challenges, like you cannot make the reach the timeline. Yes, all those are very good. And again, you touched many of the important concepts and tips here. Here I just want to share some of the concepts or mindsets that we feel like are very important. Reliable professionals do not just complete tasks; they manage outcomes. For example, if your PI asks you to do an experiment, it is okay if you just show up, say, okay, I did the experiment. But what is better is actually, you know what your boss, your supervisor or PI wants, and then you deliver that outcome. So that requires us to know, when you start to do something, you really need to clarify the expectation, the scope, the priorities upfront. And then you track progress and flag risks before they become programs. You track progress. If everything goes well, that's perfect. But if something went off track, you need to know as soon as possible so that you can maybe use your backup plans. Maybe you have other ways to work on it so that you can ensure still you deliver the outcome. Right? You flag risk. You need to analyze the risks here and predict what could come wrong, and then have backup solutions. So ensure you can really not only do this thing, but you do it successfully. That is actually very, very important concept, especially when you work in industry.
So reliable people do good on
Most of the time. And most of the time they deliver on time, they deliver with good outcome. But also sometimes things doesn't work out the way you want. In that time, you need to renegotiate proactively. And goes back to your point. When things doesn't work out, I mean, we are not perfect person. There are times that we cannot deliver. In that case, what should we do? So that comes to the next question. Have you ever missed a deadline? What would you do if you are about to miss one? You already mentioned that communicate earlier. What else?
If that has been divided into several cell type for art and we provide the most important.
Prioritize and still maybe deliver partially, right? That's a good strategy. What else? And remember, that's a question that you're likely to get asked during a behavioral interview, right? Tell me a time when you missed a deadline and how did you handle that? So now, before you get to the interview, we want to learn what are some of the important mindsets and considerations so that you can practice that when you are in that situation, so that later when you are in the interview, you can confidently share your experience.
Also like by just asking the whoever's managing this project, like if I miss this deadline, like how much extension, like it's like can I get like for I think from and like what, and if there's a priority, like if they already have like some opinions of what work we should prioritize first.
Yeah, and that is also about communicate. Communicate and maybe understand other people's expectation to see whether you can adjust timeline, adjust priorities. Yeah.
What if it's not something you can break down? What if you've got a manuscript that you're supposed to deliver to your advisor by 4:45 today, and it's 4:40 now, and it's not going to happen? What do you do? There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I would argue, why wait to tell him like 4:40? Why not earlier? Yeah, again, there is no absolute answer, right? We want to hear from each other, share your tips. And here we also want to share some kind of tips from our side. As we said, communicate earlier. Always communicate earlier. This is one of the core message today we want to share with you is communication. Talk. Empower you to ask questions, empower you to communicate. Communicate earlier, not at the last minute.
I really want to emphasize that too, because I feel like this is something I've noticed a lot with my younger workers that I've supervised before, that there seems to be some hesitation to do this. Like they're scared that I'll be mad if they're not able to do something. And it's like, I will never be mad if someone emails me and says like, oh, hey, for whatever reason, I'm not able to complete this at the time we originally set. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out. I am mad if I never hear from them, or if I hear from them 2 seconds before it was supposed to be due, because then there's nothing I can do to like adjust expectation or figure out what I'm supposed to do. So
Exactly. When you communicate earlier, you have an opportunity to get support and maybe things look different, right? So second one is really be transparent. When you communicate earlier, don't hide some of the things. Not your PI or your collaborator or your manager know clearly what has been delayed, why are you delaying this, and what is the impact. And not only that, so this is a great opportunity to get their support, right? Get their advice. And also at this point, you also need to not only bring the risks and kind of the challenges, and what are you thinking You are the person who is working on this most. You probably have thought a lot. What is your proposed solution? And this is also a key thing to keep yourself reliable. Bring proposed solutions. And what could be the new timeline? I think somebody mentioned that. And what support do you need before your manager kind of share how they can support you? You can ask upfront, I need your support on this and that. Can I get another person involved in this project so that we can deliver on that? Make sure your request is clear and then follow through the new plan. And usually when things like this happen, if you communicate earlier, if you present your challenge and your proposed solution, make your request clear, maybe you can still meet your deadline with the new additional information and feedback and support. So this is a very important mindset we need to have. And this is how we can build our reliability. So this one, I still manage my outcome, right? I make sure I deliver on time, even though I encounter challenge. I manage to overcome the challenge and then ensure I have this outcome. This is about reliability. Another point here I want to discuss with you is, what do you think your supervisor is in their position and you are in yours? For example, you are a PhD and your PI is your PI. Or in future, when you are in the workplace, your manager is your manager and you are an individual contributor. Why is that? In what ways could you grow to be more like your supervisor, your boss?
I have a question before your
Yeah.
question. So why should we assume we are going to be like my supervisor? Why should I?
Great question. You don't have to. But if you want to, I think there is always something that you can learn from your supervisor, right? And the reason he can be a team lead, a supervisor, there must be something unique about him that make him qualified to do that. So if you desire, you can learn from them, but you don't have to. Yeah, great question.
The supervisor has years of experience of managing a subject complex.
Yeah. Time could be a component, right? But sometimes your supervisor is maybe younger than you, right? That's also.
It can lead to the long-term scoring. They wanted to become PI, but if I don't want.
Yeah, I understand. Fear, let us think about not your current supervisor, maybe some of the supervisors you are going to encounter in the workplace. If you don't want to be become a faculty, don't restrict yourself thinking about be like your current PI. Yeah, maybe any boss,
I think one thing that will do is like during the communication between your supervisor and you, for example, you have the challenge and you look for help and talk to your supervisor and you figure out, oh, she give me some good suggestions. She deal with this situation like this. This is a good way that I didn't think of. And then I learn from this like communication with her. And also in the opposite side, if you came across a challenge and you talk to her and you didn't get the support you want, and you might think, oh, what I would wish I could get from her. By doing this interaction, usually you will figure out, okay, if some days I become a supervisor, I should learn from her or I should do things in this way so that my students can get the support that they will want. So,
yeah. So you definitely learn kind of from some of the positive examples, but also you want to avoid some of the negative examples, right? Yeah. So again, I guess there are a lot of different things that we can learn from our supervisor, but here we just want to share a few things. Is always go beyond, anticipate what is next. I think something that we want to learn from our supervisor is they know the bigger picture and they always think quite a few more steps behind this thing. So that's something we can practice doing now. It's always to think, okay, after I accomplish this, what is the next? What is the next 2 step, 3 step, 4 step? And that is very important. As a PhD, as a postdoc, we can start to practice, and that will really help you excel, become excellent. Somebody also mentioned that in the workplace in future. Think 1 or 2 steps ahead. What do they need after this task? And then also identify gaps, improvements before they ask you. And this will put you in a very advantageous position, right? You already thought about that. When they ask you, you already have your thoughts, ideas, and how great that would be, right? But to be able to have that skill, you need to practice from now. And also show ownership of the bigger picture, not only your piece. And this is so super, super, super important. Maybe right now, you may not experience that much because as PhD and postdoc, sometimes we work on like our own project, right? Even though maybe it's slightly related to others, we have our own projects. But in future, when you work in the workplace, no matter it is in academia or in industry, you work in a team, you work in a big organization, and you have to make sure your goal, your deliverables align with the bigger team, the bigger organization's team. Otherwise, you may have worked a lot, but it will be not recognized. Or you have spent a lot of time, you are actually working in a wrong direction. And that happens a lot of times. It's because just we have limited understanding and we just focus on our own piece. So something that we need to learn from now and also in future is always think about the bigger picture. And we can get the support from your manager, from your collaborator, so that you can quickly get the big picture. This is something that we need to practice a lot in future. When we say ownership of the big picture, it's not to say, okay, I own this project, I own this data. Yeah, it's really shows that you know the big picture, you know the whole pipeline, so that knowing the big picture and the whole pipeline can help you to do your part well. Just for example, right now, we are in charge of the PhD and postdoc career community within the Center for Career Engagement. When we do our things, we have to make sure our goals and our strategies aligns with CCE, the Center for Career Engagement strategy. And then CCE, when they develop their own strategy, they have to make sure they align with, for example, student affairs strategy. And then student affairs strategy needs to align with WashU's strategy. And this is super, super important. You have to make sure this alignment. Otherwise, many times our effort could be spent in a wrong direction.
Community. So last pillar here. Community is about understanding the people to whom you are responsible in the organization and the nature of your relationship. Every job you will ever have is a social one. I do not care how much you think any job is isolated. None are. All jobs have some form of community. So the biggest considerations on this are always going to be effective communication. Being able to communicate well with the people that you work with is one of the single most important skills that you can develop, period. Any field, any area, any job, any person. There are other things like how casual versus formal the organization is. Some organizations have a much more kind of casual environment. People are kind of friendlier, they don't dress as fancy. Some places are a lot more like buttoned up and we're always in a suit and tie and we never talk about our personal lives. But those kinds of considerations are important to think about. And cultural competency has become a huge one because we live in a very global world. You're going to work with people from lots of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religions, different genders, different all sorts of things that you need to be able to navigate well.
Now, again, Kyle gave the overall introduction. Now we are going to dive into some specific examples. And again, I want it to be interactive. First, we're going to talk about something about email communication. What examples of email communication have you seen that seem to be unprofessional.
Like emails, anyway, sending from my iPhone, but in a different language.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe send from your phone, right? Yeah, you need, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, when you send in your phone, it will say send from my phone, and sometimes you need to correct it, right?
Not like that. I'm saying, you know, like sending from my phone, but in French or other languages.
Yeah, so know your audience, right? What language you should use, and that's a very basic one. Thank you for correcting. What else?
Okay, mine is more like a scenario. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm international student, and then when I moved here, there's one thing I realized was different is when you send emails to professors, you can just go with the first name, they're fine.
Mhm.
Where I came from, when you do that is very hard to call them, you have to add something. That helps.
Here's the fun bit. That's not universal here either, one way or the other. Some professors will get very mad if you use their first name. Some of them will be perfectly fine.
See a lot of things just with no previous hi, and then put a message. It's not addressing to somebody. Yeah, I mean, some people do that, but whenever I read this type of email, it's just a hard thing. I wish they have said like hi May or hi Chuan Mei, you know, hi Dr. Zhu, you know, that makes it more personal, more he said, yeah. What else?
This is kind of extreme, but it's like if you didn't capitalize the first word in your sentence.
Yeah, yeah, this sometimes also related to the first impression you are going to create in front of others, right? You pay attention to this type of detail. But hopefully nowadays with AI and everything, hopefully, you know, that type of things will won't happen that often.
Have any of you ever gotten an email where your name was spelled wrong? That's a bit unprofessional, right?
Yeah. So it looks like you are all doing very professionally with your emails, but here we want to point out a few common kind of like unprofessional behaviors in email communication. First is they won't respond. Especially this email is sent direct to you and probably only you, and you do not hear any response for a long time. That is very unprofessional. And I want to call that out. In future, whenever you receive an email that is addressed to you, respond. And if you cannot get the full answer, you know, within 24 hours, maybe you can say, I got your email. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Right? This is a quick message, but this shows a lot of professionalism, this simple communication. So first, respond. Second is respond quickly. So in business settings, usually you're expected to respond an email within 24 business hours. And as I said, if you cannot, you know, send a short message and then follow up with a full email. And include your email signature. How many of you have an email signature? Okay, great. If you do not have one yet, set that up. Again, that's the first impression you are going to create in front of others, right? Email signature. And third, clear is kind. I sometimes receive a message that is like, this no. And you have to understand, people are busy. And it's hard to process so many information in a short time when we're dealing thousands of things. Clear is kind. In your email, clearly indicate what the situation, what's your ask, what's the action item. You know, everybody has their own different ways, but make sure it's clear, it's organized. Other people can get the information quickly. Lastly is Also use the different kinds of communication tools effectively. So here is not only about email, right? Sometimes you may use Slack or using Teams message. So be responsive. One of the questions that we usually ask when we first start to work together is, what's your preferred communication style or preferences? Some people prefer texting. My boss preferred message, like Teams message. She is not very responsive in email. And I am an email person. So we told each other about our preferred communication channels. So in this way, we know, for important stuff, how to communicate with each other. Another small trick here is calendar scheduler. For example, if you want to schedule a meeting with somebody, do you know how to set up that quickly? How many of you used the calendar scheduler? Raise your hand if you did that. Okay, some of you. Maybe we can do a very quick demo on how you.
Maybe towards the end.
Towards the end, okay.
If we have time.
Okay, for those who do not know yet, I highly recommend you do that. From my interaction with students, many of them do not know this functionality, and this is so basic and important when you are in the workplace. So get yourself ahead of the game. So the next question would be, what behaviors in meeting have you observed that are unprofessional? Just name a few. Peer meetings mean like small, like this type of meetings, or small lab meetings, small group discussions.
Not letting others talk.
Not let others talk. Yeah, trying to be inclusive is very important. Create opportunities so that other people can participate in the conversation. Great point. What else?
Checking your phone to
Take your phone. Do not pay attention. Yes. Yeah, there could be a lot of different things, right? Here we want to share a few that we really want to share with you. And that is really help you to build your professional presence. And one of the unprofessional way is being silent. You do not participate. So here we really want to encourage you, no matter what meeting you are participating in, contribute to that meeting. Maybe set up a goal for yourself. Ask at least one question or make one comment. And if you keep doing that, it will make a huge difference. It's a small goal, but very important. And this is a great way to practice building your professional presence. When you show up in meeting, always come prepared, especially if you are meeting somebody new, a new collaborator, a new colleague. Do some research, review materials, come with questions, know your role, your contribution is in this process so that you can say the right thing. And then also follow up after the meeting. Yeah, this is about communication in meetings. Another topic we want to cover here is communication through small talks. I'm sure you are very well equipped in formal presentations, such as conference presentations and others. But small talk is very, very important in the United States, especially for international students. We may not be that, kind of natural or comfortable doing that. What are some of the tips you find helpful?
Get to know the people you are going to talk to, like you mentioned in the last slide, review their papers or materials, and also get to know the weather and events around the local.
Yeah, be prepared, right? Do some homework. And also talk about some kind of neutral topic, such as weather, right? Great point.
Americans love talking about the weather. We really do.
What else? You don't have to like super top, like super
listen to. Because people do want to protect.
Yeah, listening is a very important skill. Yeah, and sometimes you just say, yeah, that's interesting. Talk more. Right? Yeah, so again, I'm not sure how comfortable you are. I know when I was a PhD student, I'm not very good at small talks. And through years of practice, now I'm feeling more and more comfortable. And that is a very important skill in the workplace. So I encourage you start to practice that in your hallway with your lab mates, with another researcher in your department. And here, there are some tips here. As I said, start with some neutral topics. There is a concert coming up. Have you heard about that? You know, all those type of things. Ask open questions. What do you think of yesterday's professional development conference? A lot of different things. Listen, ask genuine questions. You know, you don't have to be the one who do the major talk. You can just ask questions. Yeah. People love to share. Other people may love to share. If you get other people talking a lot, but usually it's a good conversation. So you just need to ask questions. And we are all curious person. So just ask questions based on your curiosity and keep it inclusive. I think we talked about that. And also know when to transition from small talk to the kind of the main purpose of the conversation, especially if you organize a meeting, right? Yeah. It's great to catch up with you. It's great to hear about that. And today I'm grateful for us to get together so that we can talk about ABC. So like a nice segue to your main purpose. One more example here. Have you ever dealt with conflict? What tips do you find helpful?
I would like to add one point.
Yeah.
Be truth and judicious, whatever the small talk you are communicating, the truth to be phrase and judicious. One should not pose also. Some people feel that they are big and they wanted to pose while communicate. Those things should be avoided. The better communication. Effective communication is simple words.
Yeah. Simple words, right?
Simple words.
Yeah.
Not a gambling of words.
Yeah. Yeah. Make it easy to understand, to be understood. Yeah.
Your smile on your face will always make you comfortable others to come out and share their feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely show your friendliness, right? And I feel like personality sometimes also can change a little bit. I remember when I was a PhD student, I got a lot of comments to say I'm a very serious person. You know, there is not much smile on my face. I talk very seriously. But nowadays, I guess I got a lot of more comments to say I always have a smile on my face. So I think also maybe, yeah, practice or being intentional could be helpful. Okay. Conflicts. And that is very important, right? Everybody is different. It's hard to avoid. There are conflicts.
To avoid the conflict, there is no need to prove that somebody is wrong or somebody is right. Somebody may say their opinion. It's okay, it's their opinion. There is no need to prove or justify or you put your opinion in that. So that avoids the major conflicts.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreeing the how to say the difference, right?
Yeah. You get it legitimately what others are saying. It's fine.
Yeah.
But there is no need to impose that you are wrong, that you do this, you are wrong. That avoids the conflict.
Yeah. Don't be so absolute.
You say simply it's okay and leave that topic. That's it.
So I'm assuming you don't have any conflicts. That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Given the time, I'm just going to share some of the very important concepts. Again, this is a question that you may get asked during the interview. So you need to have the right mindset and practice that so that you can share the story in the interview. How to handle conflict. First, also, again, early communication, right? Address the issue earlier. Don't let it build. Whenever you sense there is something that is conflicting, you can start the communication. Second is also, don't focus on personalities, focus on facts and also the impact. Instead of saying you are lazy, say, I noticed that you are late for 3 times this week, and then talk about the impact. And this made me feel like we are rushed in our project, right? So not on personalities, but on the facts and impacts. Seek to understand first. There might be a reason behind, right? I noticed you are late for 3 times this week. What happened to you? How can I help? Right? Ask questions, offer help. That's a great way to build a relationship. Communicate directly and respectfully. Instead of say you, say I and how I felt, how that affected me. Get it a little more personable and reasonable. So it helps the communication and build the relationship. And also communicate directly whenever you notice there is a conflict. Don't complain to others. That will make things worse. And sometimes you need to involve a third person, but first, always try to reconcile between you two. And then always come with solutions. I think we emphasize this a couple of times. Do not just bring the challenges or the pain points here, but propose solutions. How can I help? I noticed you are late for 3 times this week. Can I give you a ride? Can we maybe stay 15 minutes after our usual time so that we can get this thing done? Always propose solutions. There are many other tips, but start to practice that in your work. One more quick about give feedback. I added this one based on my communication with Kyle. I will just go through this very quickly about giving feedback. I mean, feedback is a two-way, right? Sometimes we receive feedback, and I trust you can handle that very well because you have plenty of opportunities to receive feedback from your PI and the collaborators. But in terms of giving feedback, that is also a very important skill. We may not have that many opportunities, but if we be intentional, we can create opportunities like that as well. For example, we sometimes ask you to provide feedback to us, right? But when you provide feedback, what are some of the tips? First, is really balance constructive feedback with acknowledgement of what is working. That means before you point out what doesn't work, say some good words about what is working, right? This is so small, but makes a big difference. If you directly come with kind of the feedback and criticism, nobody likes to hear that. Say something positive. Show appreciation first, right? This not only applies to our workplace, this applies to our family relationship as well in any setting. And then similarly as before, do not focus on the person, focus on the behaviors, outcomes, processes. And it explains the impact, right? This is all very reasonable. Explain the impact. And again, come with suggestions and the solutions. And then invite dialogue, is ask other people to give to say something. So that is dialogue. It's not just I complain or give feedback. It's really a conversation.
Okay. In the interest of time, we'll probably just kind of skip through most of this. Basically, business attire looks different. Professional attire looks different depending on where you are. So get a sense before you ever start a job of like, what does professional personal presentation look like? There are places like this is perfectly professional attire for the space that I'm in higher ed. There are spaces where I would look like the most unprofessional person in the world dressed like this. Like if I walked into an investment firm dressed like this, they would kick me out. Whereas if I walked into a community theater looking like this, they would think I was there to like narc on someone. So context matters, get a sense of what it is. And we have some kind of guides in here, which again, we'll send the slides to you afterwards so we can get at it. We want to talk just very quickly here about what I think a lot of folks may perceive as the conflict sometimes between professionalism and authenticity. I think particularly for like my generation, I'm a millennial, and a lot of younger generations, there is a sense that like professionalism is at odds with authenticity. And we want to emphasize that that doesn't have to be the case. And a lot of times it's understanding really the difference, that there's a difference between being authentic and being like casual. And so, for example, being authentic means wearing clothes that aligns with your gender identity and expression. It does not mean, like authenticity and professionalism does not mean wearing clothes that displays like non-work interests or hobbies, like coming in with a Grateful Dead t-shirt or something else along those lines. Like that is not the absolute definition of being authentic. Similarly, it's authentic to interact with coworkers honestly and openly, but it can be too casual to share like highly personal details of your family life with a colleague who you don't know very well. Um, Another, expressing concerns about organizational policies, behaviors, and expectations. That's perfectly authentic if you feel like something's not working right in your professional environment. But it is way too casual, for example, to use social media to complain about your workplace issues before you've tried to address them in any way internally. The point basically is like you can be authentic and professional. These are not things that are in conflict with one another. You just need to understand the line also between authenticity and super casual behavior. The workplace is not the same as your family life or your friends, and it's not supposed to be. It's going to be different. And you can show up as yourself, like truly yourself, just by understanding, by recognizing that there is going to be a little bit of a gap, that this is not going to be like when you're sitting at couch, on the couch at home or something along those lines. All right, so want to get to, probably won't get to all the scenarios, but want to get to at least a couple so we can kind of discuss these. So May.
Okay, sounds good. So we thought about a few scenarios, and I want you assume you are kind of the main character here, and what are you going to do? For scenario one, I'll just give a couple of minutes for you to read it and to understand the context, and then we can discuss. If you were that person, how would you do different? How would you respond differently?
I think that's it. I think at first, like communicate, maybe at the very beginning when he received or she received the email, just tell them the plan he's going to do. And then think of a backup plan, like what if I will by later send you something, you say if I couldn't finish all the analysis, tell them the plan. And then think about like not the last minute, like offer something like maybe first day morning, that's the latest time and send you something if I couldn't finish. So have a plan and then communicate early and keep them updated about the progress.
Yeah, great point. Communicate early. I think definitely, yeah. And also show the plan so that the boss knows what to expect. What else?
I think M should reply email among should list of her plan. And then when this big picture fixed and then do the detail work.
Yeah, maybe a couple of email communication, right? Like
Yeah.
on Monday, have some communication, set up the plan and execution. And when the things doesn't work, maybe some more communication. Don't need to wait until when you meet on Friday, right? What else? There are quite a few different points I want to touch with this scenario.
When the analysis taking long, the data analysis is taking longer than expected, like they could like shelf, like just ask for the PI for example, I'm stuck with that, but what they do. Or even just like come up with a thing of like, oh, if I cannot finish, if we really cannot finish the data analysis by the upcoming conference, then we just don't include that thing. We just use what happened.
Great point. Yeah. And this is also something that we really want to share with you. If you get stuck on something and it takes hours, really ask for help. Because if you talk to others, maybe you can fix it within a few minutes. Right? That's one thing. And the second is whether we need to include this data analysis in the presentation. It's something that you need to discuss with your advisor, maybe in the beginning, to avoid one scenario here, right? Maybe you can include something else in the presentation without including that part of data analysis. What else?
Would send M and my T and my PI what I have now, and then we will put the slides together and have a practice for the conference.
Yeah. Collaboration, right? Also, even sometimes delegation. Some other part you can let your PI do or let your collaborators do. What else?
When you get negative feedback, it's helpful to treat it as a learning opportunity. It seems like in
Yeah, receive feedback, right? And also control kind of your image. I mean, it's okay to cry in front of your boss, but the reason she's crying, I think, kind of says something for her, maybe feel frustrated, maybe not have the right attitude to receive feedback, things like that. So yeah, great point. What else? There is one more point I want to touch. Is it okay for him to directly include T's data in the presentation? It is preliminary data.
Ask first.
Ask first. Is it okay to do that, right? Especially if it's preliminary, is that really concrete data? All those questions we need to kind of ask. Okay, this is a quick, there are other points that we want to touch, but I think we touched the major points. Great job.
I think we had two other scenarios, but we want to make sure we have some wrap-up time here and time for Q&A. So I'm just going to mention them kind of briefly. And again, we'll send out the slides if you want to review them. This one is related to the scenarios. M is an international researcher working in a multidisciplinary group. Notices some of her team members who are native English speakers routinely interrupt her. In addition, she's noticed that her peers frequently spend time together outside of work, but she's rarely invited to these events. She wants to address her concerns with her PI and peers, but isn't certain the best way to go about it. This one's to prompt you to think a little bit about, again, professional norms, how you navigate interpersonal relationships in work, how you understand the nature of the community, how to address kind of sensitive topics with supervisors and with colleagues. So something I would encourage you all to reflect on, particularly around like who M can talk to about this and how this might be best addressed.
And again, I'm not sure whether this resonates with you at all, but I think we built those scenarios really based on not only our own experience, but based on many of the coaching points we have done with PhD and postdoc. I hope at least some part of them will resonate with you. And if none of them resonate with you, congratulations, maybe you are in a very good shape.
All right. So let's have some wrap up and next steps here. May, do you want to do the 5 R's?
Yeah. Again, I think professionalism is actually a big topic. And if you have seen our PhD journey map, professionalism is one of the 6 competencies we want our students to develop during their training. So really encourage you to spend more time to think about this topic, practice it. And if there are other similar workshops through our campus partners, attend, you cannot learn it fully just from one workshop. So continue to build on that. And again, there are a lot of different things, but we want to share 5 R as a principle to wrap up here. First, we talked about reliability. And I trust our WashU PhD and Postdoc are very good at that. And here we encourage you to think a little bit more, right? Think about own the outcome. always think about the next step, next 1 or 2 steps. Second one is responsiveness. Communicate. Always talk a little bit more. We know how to do things, but talk a little bit more. Answer your emails. Have small talks. Give feedback. Handle conflicts. Be responsiveness. Have responsiveness in this topic. The third, this is very basic but very important. There are so many things we can do, but the fundamental one is actually from our heart. Is we have respect toward others. And because we have respect to others, we can be reliable. We can think about the next step. We can own the outcome. And because we have the respect, we want to respond to other people's email. We want to listen to others. We want to have those small talks. So respect is very important here. Reflection, nobody can be have great professionalism when they start their career. Always reflect, what you have been doing well? What are some of the areas you need improvement? So this way you can grow. And then gradually you build your reputation, you build your image, and you are who you are. And that is your professionalism.
We have some other resources here, just some extra kind of reading and things. One of these, Going Global, is a platform that's based around international job searching. It has culture guides, which I really like. So it'll talk about what the kind of professional cultures are like in different countries, so that you can kind of get a sense if you're thinking about, oh, maybe I want to work in France or something, and it can talk about like, here's kind of how people behave a little bit more in France in terms of professionalism, communication style, whatever. And we have some other articles and links on here on engaging in the workplace, defining professionalism, and professionalism, inclusivity, and authenticity. So just some other kind of further reading resources if you like. Next steps. So we encourage you to reflect on areas of strength and areas where you may need to improve your professionalism. Talk with colleagues or mentors about professional expectations in your lab, your field, your classes. Join industry or LinkedIn groups or professional organizations that can learn a little bit more about what the expectations are like in those spaces. This is more for down the line when you're part of an organization as like a full-time staff or faculty. Take trainings from your organization's HR department. Lots of HR departments offer great professionalism training. And you can always feel free to set up a one-on-one appointment with us in the CCE to talk through more of these ideas. Or if there's particular circumstances you found yourself in, we're more than happy to help with that. This is if you don't mind taking our feedback survey, we would really appreciate it. This gives us a sense of what we're doing well in these workshops, what needs improvement. We're going to continue offering workshops like this in the future, so it helps us with that process of getting better at what we're doing.